All right, hello everybody. I am Jennifer Lee, Admin Evangelist at Salesforce, and welcome to Automate This. This series is live stream every month. And hold on, just let me just close the volume on this other app. Okay, awesome. All right, so this series is live stream every month, and you can catch this live or watch it again on video on demand on the same live stream page. For those joining us for the first time, let's just quickly set expectations. With Automate This, you can hear how and be inspired by trailblazers who solve real-world business problems using automation. You'll learn and discuss best practices and topics that are top of mind for admins as it relates to automation. And the best part, you can ask questions and interact live with the presenters as well as other attendees. So I continue to have some great people lined up to talk all things automation. And again, our focus for this first year with the future retirement of workflow rules and processes is focused on record-triggered flows. And we will follow up the next day with blog content on admin.salesforce.com, where we will deep dive into what you just saw today. Okay, so the best part to set a reminder when we go live is to set a reminder on the actual episode page. And then you'll get an email reminder to the date of the event. And we'll also post upcoming sessions on all our various social channels. To interact with the audience, post your comments on the page. To interact with me and my guest presenter, start your question with a Q colon so I can easily scan through and identify your questions for the Q&A section. All right, so in this episode, we are going to get hands-on with Jessie Rymph, who will teach us how to build loops in a flow. Okay, so loops may be a new concept to some of you out there, and one of the more complex concepts to learn in flow. So I like to think of it as assembly line. Everything needs to go through that assembly line and has the same actions taken on it. In the Salesforce world, if you have a group of records, you could perform the same action on every record that goes through that grouping in that loop. And then for each record, when it's its turn to go down the assembly line, it'll be placed in a loop record. And once it's done, you go on to the next record in the loop. And it continues on. And then at the end of it, you do something with the collection of records. So you're going to learn today 3 key things about loops. To update records with a flow loop, you'll always use the same 5 elements. When building a flow loop, imagine you gather a stack of papers, you decide what you want to do with each one, draft a change in pencil to each set, and then set it aside in a different stack, and then repeat it for each paper, and then make your final changes in in pen. And third, also try to imagine flow in an empty space that's separate from your data. You use elements and variables to move that data into and out of the flow. All right, so today I'm joined by Jessie. She is a Salesforce.org senior solution developer, and she also has a blog, Sunshine and Other Unhandled Exceptions. I love the name of your blog. It's really cute.
Thank you so much.
And I don't know if audience members out there, have you seen those animated bite-sized flow videos that teach you how flow on Trailhead? Well, Jessie worked on those videos. She's very creative in writing the scripts and things like that. But she worked on those videos along with other members of the Flowmentum project team, and we recently released 6 more videos out there. So today we have a first on Automate This. We will have a follow along at home with Jessie. So if you have a personal dev.org handy or a Trailhead Playground, you can download the exercise guide that you see posted above. And we also posted it in the chat. And you'll be able to follow along with Jessie, or you can watch as Jessie builds and then take that exercise guide and watch the episode again and then follow along. So either way, it's like a cooking show where you're following along the cook, right? Um, so we can get ready right now by creating the status field on the account with the pick list option inactive. All right, Jessie, can you please introduce yourself to the Automate This audience?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jessie Rymph. I've been at Salesforce for 4 years, and I've been involved in the ecosystems for 11 years. I've been a nonprofit admin. I've been an admin at a university and an admin at a company. And then I joined Salesforce, started making webinars for nonprofit customers. And now I'm helping our nonprofit and education customers. So excited to be here with you, Jen. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So I'm always interested in hearing how people learn flow. What was your flow journey like? How did you get started? What challenges did you run into and how did you overcome them? I know that's a mouthful.
Yeah, no problem. So for me, I got started because I got a new job as a Salesforce admin where I was supposed to be in charge of everything Salesforce at the company. And then pretty quickly, like within 2 weeks, my boss was replaced by another person who was a Salesforce admin with a lot more experience than me. So I realized I needed to level up my skills pretty quickly so that I was still valuable to the company. So that's when I decided to become a developer, and I learned all this code. And no, I'm totally kidding. I tried that, and then I was like, let me try that flow thing I heard about at Dreamforce. So I had a hands-on guide from a session at Dreamforce, and I practiced with that. And then the thing that really helped me was getting a step-by-step tutorial from Judy Sohn, who works here at
Mm-hmm.
salesforce.org. And she wrote a guide on um, something having to do with updating the opportunity contact role. And so going through that guide really helped me understand a lot better what was going on. So I think the bigger challenges for me, a lot of them have been handled now in Flow. A lot of things that we had to do before are now happening automatically. We're going to see today in the demo, it's automatically going to create some variables for us. It's going to create record collection variables. And all of these different variables, I had no idea what that was about. I
Mm-hmm.
just followed the script to see what's going on. So that's why in these videos Jen mentioned, we're trying to really break it down for you, the concepts behind these things. What what are these different pieces and what do they mean if you're not already a developer? Because a lot of the challenge with Flow is it is a developer tool. So you have to translate these things
Mm-hmm.
so that they make sense as an admin.
So for people, excuse me, for people who want to learn flow, what advice do you have to offer to them?
Yeah, I have a blog post that hopefully you can share. So I love teaching people how to use Flow. So I've put together a guide of content that I think top 10 things to do in order to start learning Flow. If you're able to share that in the chat. A lot of the content's what I've created, either on Trailhead or on my blog or the videos. So I have steps for you to get started, understand the concepts, and then get some good practice.
Great. All right. So if you're joining us just now, if you want to follow along in this hands-on training, download the exercise guide over here.
There we go. That way. Yay.
Yay! We're pointing in the right direction. Okay, so loops can really throw admins who are learning flow a loop, no pun intended.
Yeah.
It's one of the more complex flow concepts to understand. Every flow loop that updates records uses those same 5 elements that you're going to talk about.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to let you take it away.
All right. I am ready to share my screen. Okay, great. So here I am in my org, and I'm going to show you what we are planning to do today first with our flow loop. We're going to build a loop that when we change the status on the account, this is a custom field called status that I put on the account. When we change it to inactive, I want it to change the stage on these 3 opportunities to closed lost. So this is a way for us to quickly update related records using a flow. So we're going to jump into building this using our hands-on training guide. Just share the looks like this. So I've got step-by-step instructions for you. You can follow along. And if you get lost at any time, we aren't able to provide a one-on-one support, but please watch again later. Just follow along for now and then watch again later with the hands-on training guide at your own pace. All right, so what I'm going to do, I would say also, if you don't have time to set up a status field on your account, that's okay. Pick something else. You can say, we're just playing around here. So say if type switches to reseller, something that you have, choose that so you can build along. It's totally fine if you don't have the status field. Just pick something because we're going to build a record triggered flow. All right, so I am going to go to setup. That is my first step in building a flow. And Jen, I think if you could mute, please. There was some background noise. All right, so I'm going to search for flow. Find that. And I'm going to, first I'll point out, I also have the flow already built for you. Oh, wait, sorry. You don't have, never mind. I have the flow built, but you don't have the access to the org that I have, so never mind that. All right, we're going to build a record triggered flow. So I clicked new, record triggered flow, and we're going to create. So we are in the pre-steps here. We're not getting into our loop yet. I told you there are 5 steps to flow loops. These are our steps before the 5 steps. So now we're going to, we get taken from our record trigger flow right into configure start element. So our object is going to be the account. So we are updating opportunities, but the change that happens is going to be on that account record. And that's going to trigger the flow. Okay, and we want it to fire when a record is updated. Our account already exists. It already has 3 opportunities on it. So it doesn't make sense for it to be created or updated or deleted. But note that that's cool. You can do something when a record's deleted. And we need to set our entry conditions. So here we're going to set our entry requirements. We're saying, what are the types of accounts or changes to the account that should trigger this flow? So my condition requirements, I'm going to pick all conditions are met and then I'm going to search for a field here that comes from the account field. So I want to choose the status field, my field that I made just for this process. And if you're playing along and don't have a status field, just pick something else and remember that so you can test it out. So I chose a pick list field. So here, when I click into value, I'm getting my pick list values. So I'm going to keep whoops, that's not right. I want it to be inactive. So when I change the status to equal inactive, this flow trigger is going to fire. Now I choose when to run the flow for updated records. Well, I only want it to run when a record is updated to meet the condition requirements. I don't want it to run every time from here on out that the status is still inactive. I only needed to update those opportunities once. So that's why I'm going to choose this option, only when a record is updated. So that very first time it's going to fire. Now, we're going to optimize the flow for actions and related records. So we're going to be saying when an account is updated, update these related records. So that's why we choose this option. We choose fast field updates only when we're updating the record that originally triggered the flow. So in this case, we're doing something else. So we have one of the short videos we released yesterday that Jen mentions talks about fast field updates versus actions and related records. Very simple. If you're only updating that record, choose fast field updates. Doing anything else, choose actions and related records. Right, and I'm going to hit done. And I have a cold, so I'm going to pause for a coughing break. All right, thank you. Great. So now we have our first element on our canvas, which is our account in the start element. So when we're working with Flow, we have this big old canvas here, and all it knows right now is about this account. Think of Flow as this other space separate from your data, and it knows only what you tell it. It doesn't know anything about your data. So you have an account right now, and it has all the fields on the account, and it also has some of the related records to the account. But it doesn't know anything about the opportunities because we haven't pulled them in yet. So think of this canvas as a separate space in Flow, separate from your data. And we're going to have to use get records to bring in the opportunities that we want to update. So first thing I'm going to do now is switch to freeform because that is how I prefer to work. I'm going to switch to freeform and I'm going to drag elements onto my canvas. If you want to use auto layout, you can do that. You'll just be using the plus sign to add your elements. All right, switching to freeform. Now, I am the first of our 5 steps that you're going to use for any flow loop that updates records is to get records. We're going to get the records that we want to update. So we are going to start here with a label. I'm going to call it get ops. And if you're following along, I'm going to tab to the API name and tab to put in my description. So we have descriptions in the guide, which are really helpful to have descriptions help you when you're coming back later and looking at this flow and trying to understand what you did. Even 20 minutes later, you'd be like, what was that about again? So it's a really good idea to use descriptions. I'm going to skip them today because I make typos. It takes up my time. So I'm just going to move ahead without them. So now we're saying, what records do we want to get? We want to get opportunities. We need to tell the flow to bring in opportunities so we can modify them. What we want to do is change their stage name to closed lost. That's our goal. So first we have to say, what opportunities are we looking for? And I'm going to keep my conditions at all conditions are met and clicking in here, I have a list of all the fields. So the fields I'm going to choose the Boolean is closed. So this is a true false field that you might not know even exists on the opportunity. So it automatically goes to true when the opportunity is closed. So today we want is closed to be, what do we want it to be? False. We are looking for opportunities that are still open. We're going to close those open opportunities on the account. There's no point in closing if some of them are closed won, we don't want to move those to closed lost, only the open ones. So is closed equals false is kind of a double negative, right? You're saying they are open. All right, which opportunities? I don't want any opportunities in the whole database. I have to connect them to my account. So I'm going to say the account ID equals, and here I'm going to use one of my favorite things here, a global variable $account. Okay, so when I click into value, I'm looking for $record. I've got my $sign here. This is my account variable. The record that triggered the flow, and any record triggered flow, gets stored on a record variable $record. That's the money right there, $record. So I'm going to click onto that. And here I first have a list of related records, but I'm going to scroll down just to ID. So I've got, and then when I click, it resolves to record account ID. So let me show you that one more time. So I want to say, make the account ID equal to that, the $record account ID. And I can type it in and it helps me limit the results here. And then click out of that. So this is saying, find me opportunities that are open whose account ID equals the account that triggered the flow, my $record account. Now, I'm not going to sort them. I don't care. But I do want to store all the records. So we could store just one, but we want all of them. So when I store all the records and I'm going to automatically store all the fields, what this is going to do for me is create a collection variable. This is like a bucket. This is my get ops bucket. So I've called this whole thing here get ops. So this is going to create a bucket for me, or a collection variable that's going to bring in all of the opportunities that meet my criteria. So this get ops bucket carries these into the flow for me. And that's automatically created through our get records. All right, I hit done. They tell you I was going to hit done. I hit done. Now I'm connecting my start element to my get records. So my get records is my bucket, and that is bringing in these ops for me. Now I have to tell the flow, what do I want it to do with these ops? This is where we bring in our loop. So I'm going to drag a loop element over from the toolbox, and I'm going to label it. What am I labeling it? My first loop. Oops, click in here. Tab to get my API name, tab to populate my description. So I'm saying to the flow, I want you to loop through this bucket of opportunities you've collected. So my collection variable, when I click in here, is available. Record collection variables, opportunities from GetOps. And that's it. I don't care what direction it iterates over the collection. So I'm going to hit done. Let me just go over that one more time. I've told it to go over the record collection variable that it created in the last step. And I'll connect these two elements. So far, my first two steps of a flow loop. One, get the records. Whoops. Get the records. Two, loop over them. Tell it to loop. Now, what does that mean? For the loop, it's going to start and take out my first variable here. My first record collection, or sorry, my first variable, first opportunity variable, and it's going to do something with it. Now our third step of our flow loop is to say, what do we want it to do? We're going to use an assignment element to tell the loop how to update this flow loop, update this opportunity. We're going to call this set new opportunity stage. Oops, that's okay. Oh, here's a trick I learned recently. If I click in out of here and back in here, ooh, it updates it for me. That's pretty cool. So now I'm saying to the flow, let's make a plan for how we're going to update these opportunities. When I have an opportunity in the loop, what do I want to do with it? I want to take here, I'm going to take this record single variable. This is the opportunity that's currently in the loop. So this is the current item from loop, my first loop. I'm going to click on that. And that's going to take me to all the fields on my opportunity. And I want to make it closed. I want to change the stage name to equals. And when I click into values, I get the pick list values. I want it to equal closed lost. So again, I clicked in here to variables, found the current item from loop, my first loop, and I type in stage name to help me find it. So I'm saying, take this, what's in the currently in the loop, and make a change on it. But we're not actually making a change yet. We're just planning the change we're going to make. So a flow loop using an assignment is going to adjust what's on the, hold on, got a cough. Excuse me. Okay. The flow loop is going to make a plan for what's going to happen on this opportunity. I'm going to change it here from open to closed lost. But I'm going to write this in pencil, so you maybe even can't even see it. Closed lost. Okay, so this is in pencil. This is a draft. I'm not making my final change yet. I want to make all of my changes to my opportunities at one time. We're going to draft all our changes and then go through the loop over and over again, and then update all the records at once. We're doing this because of governor limits. Every time you update a record, you use a DML statement. And with governor limits, you have a limited number of DML statements you can make. So this is a best practice to update your records all at once or create records depending on your type of loop. So using this assignment element inside the loop is just changing the value on the record variable. It's a placeholder. It's a card. It's written in pencil. It's not a real thing. So we want the loop to go to this assignment element for each item in the collection. So when I drag the connector over there, I have that choice to make. Is it going to go here after the loop, or is it going to go for each item in the collection? It's going to do that. So that was my third step for my flow loop. And remember, if you have questions, go ahead and ask using a Q in front of them so it can help Jen find them. Okay, so first thing we've done is we've got our records. We started the loop. We have made our draft. Our second assignment is our fourth step. We're going to add another assignment here, drag it onto our canvas. And this is where we're going to say, what do I do with this? So I've made a change to it. I need to put it somewhere. I could put it in a stack, or I could put it in, let's see if you can see this one, a new collection. It says update ops. This is my second bucket. I'm going to put this card in this bucket. And that says, okay, I've made the change to it. It's ready to be updated when we want to update all of them. So we're going to call this add to collection. The point of this assignment is to create a new bucket and put this record variable into it. So over here, we're going to create a new resource. So previously, all of our variables have been created for us. Our get records of collection, our loop variable, you didn't know you were creating variables. Those happened automatically. We have to create our new collection by clicking into new resource. And our resource type is variable. And the API name here, we're going to call this update ops. So this is my update ops bucket. And my data type is going to be records. I have records in the bucket, and this is a collection. So I'm going to check the multiple values collection. I'm collecting my records in there. These are opportunities. And I'm done. So this step, creating a new resource, is creating the bucket. Next, we're going to put this record variable into the bucket. So we're going to add to our collection the item currently in the loop. So that's a record single variable. Current item from my loop. So click on here, this record single variable, and then you click out somewhere else, and it resolves to current item from loop, my first loop. So that's kind of a weird thing. You click in here under record single variable, select this, and then you just click somewhere else. So we're not selecting a field, we're selecting the whole variable, okay? So I know these are confusing. I've done loops so many times, and I just have to, for a long time, go back and look at a tutorial again. What's the order? You have to always do it in the same order. So it's confusing now. You just have to practice. You think about okay, what am I doing? I'm getting a variable. I'm changing it in pencil. I'm adding it to a collection. Hopefully these ideas will help you remember this. Okay, so far we have taken our one opportunity, modified it a little bit, put it into our new bucket. That's all we have to do inside the loop. So I'm going to close the loop like this. Just drag my elements or my connector back over to my first loop. Okay, now the loop is closed. So we have 4 of our 5 elements for our flow loop. Now, what do? So then the loop is going to repeat. It's going to get out our second opportunity, mark it close lost, put it in the bucket. I'm going to loop again. We have 3 opportunities on this account. Change this, closed, lost, put it in the bucket. Loops around again. nothing, no more loops. So we're all done. We have 3 opportunities modified here, opportunity record variables in our new closed ops bucket. Okay, so what we do next is our 5th step. The last step of a flow loop, we're going to update our records. So this is where we make our DLNL statement and push these changes we've made from this bucket out into the database. So far, they've just been drafts, they've been variables, they haven't been real. We've been planning what our changes are. Now with our update records, we're going to drag that onto our canvas. And we're going to use this to finalize our changes. So I'm going to call this update opportunities, tab. And now with this update records, it doesn't know what opportunities, I want to create or want to update. I have to tell it. So if I specify conditions, I could build out criteria. Or I can use the account record that triggered the flow. Or what I'm going to do now is use the IDs and all field values from a record or a record collection. So I've already, throughout this loop, said, this is what I plan to do. I'm planning to change these to closed lost. Here they all are. Update my collection. So when I click into record or record collection, I'm going to choose update ops. I have my second collection here, and that's it. So I've chosen my second record collection variable, update ops. Click out of that, and I can hit done. So now when I drag my connector over here, there we go, drag my connector. Okay, there we go. So now it's going to say after the last item. So the records are coming in, looping around, and after everything is done, one DML statement to update these opportunities. So that will look like this. After it finally runs, these are our beautiful updated opportunities, brand new card. All opportunities on this account are closed lost. So let me save this and we'll activate it. And I'll call it account inactive. I already have one in here named that, so I'll call it inactive 2. And I do really want to stress how important it is to put a good description on your flow itself. It would be really annoying. Ooh, you can't copy and paste from a PDF, this PDF. That's frustrating. Okay. Really helpful for you to have your flow descriptions very clear. So I save it, and a very, very important step is to activate it. And now we can test it. We can go back to our account, mark our status as inactive, and see what happens. Okay, all 3 of our opportunities here are now marked closed lost. So we have quickly made our first flow loop. And just want to tell you about these 5 steps you're going to use for a flow loop. You're going to use the same steps if you're creating records. So if your last element is going to be a create records, your first assignment is you're going to say, tell the flow what records you want to create. And those will be stored in record variables. Then you're going to add those variables to a collection and do it again. So let's say I was looping through all of these opportunities and I was going to create, instead of closing them, I was going to create a new campaign or a new opportunity. I would get records, get my collection. When I go through my first op 1, my assignment says, create this new record for me in a draft. And then this assignment says, add it to a collection. And then then instead of update records, you have a create records element. If you are using a delete records with your loop, you might not need a loop. If all you're doing is getting a collection of records and deleting it, you can go right to using a delete records element. You would use a delete records with a loop if you want to include a decision. And your decision here could say, is this opportunity over 100 days? If not, or if it's 300 days old or something, if we do that, then we want to delete it. Or if we never got anywhere with this opportunity, if the status is needs prospecting or something, go ahead and delete it. If the status is further than that, let's mark it closed lost. So that could be how you could use a delete records element. You'd put your some of your records into a delete records collection, into collection to be deleted, and some of them would be updated. So I hope that made sense. You'd use delete records if you're using a decision element to kind of divide them into two different groups, some that would be deleted, some that would be updated. Again, you want to always update or delete, make these DML statements at the end of the loop. And then one more thing I want to share with you before we get to our questions is on the App Exchange, you can install this flow, a version of this flow. So this flow, it does all the same things, but instead of being launched through a record triggered flow, it's a screen flow launched by a button. So you can install this from App Exchange to see how it works. So you would click a button on the on the account, and that's going to run this same loop, get all open ops, mark them closed lost, and then it's going to give you a screen at the end that shows you all the opportunities. So that would be a fun thing to do to build on what you learned today. So we've learned to launch the flow from a record triggered flow, install this sample flow loop, and you can see how to launch it from a button. And that is what I've got to show you. So I'm excited to answer some questions. Oops.
Awesome. So thank you, Jessie, for sharing all those things about loops and demystifying loops for our awesome admins out there watching today. I'm sure you all have questions. I've been trying to keep track of all the questions coming in. But if you do have questions, just a reminder to start your questions with a Q colon so I can easily flag those on. So we're just going to take a couple seconds to transition to the Q&A session. Okay, I have a bunch of them lined up for you, Jessie. All right, great. So just before we start, a couple of people did love those visual cues. Robert, I love the way she's demoing with visual cues. Those buckets and cards are finally clicking for me.
Yay!
Elaine, thank you. Love the way that you explain it. Carlos says those props are on fire.
Thank you, Carlos.
Okay. All right. So our first question, hold on.
While you're looking for that, yep. I wanted to say, I sent my dad an email that he could watch this. I don't know if he got it, but Dad, if you're still here, hi, thanks for watching. This is what I do for work. It's really fun. Okay. I doubt he's there, but.
No worries. All right, so our first question is from Tomo. Oops, let me move that further in. Great. Question, I may have missed it, but would like to know when to choose freeform versus auto layout for flow.
Yeah, so sometimes some configurations can't be done in auto layout. So I would say I just like working in freeform. That's what auto layout is newer. So you can, I would say, do whatever you want. Play with both. You can do auto layout, and then Jen, do you remember what are the situations in which it's like you can't switch back to auto layout? I think it's like if I have an element on there that isn't connected to anything currently.
That might be. I mean, I've always learned flow with freeform. That's my natural sense is to go to freeform. But I've been trying more and more these days to go auto layout because the Flow team is only investing really in auto layout features.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot more that you'll get out of auto layout that you don't get out of freeform. For example, forward-looking statement, winter 23. When you add an element to auto layout, you can search for it instead of scrolling and finding it, or going to the canvas and then dragging it on. So I would recommend, if you're first starting off with Flow, start with auto layout. Give it a try. For those
Yeah.
who build like a lot of complex flows, I think we're just used to freeform so that we could just easily move things around. But again, there's new features coming out that allow you to cut and paste and copy and paste and things like that.
Ooh.
Um, so it's kind of personal preference at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. All right. Let's add a new question on here. Okay. So Sandy asks, can this app exchange flow work on a list view button?
Sure. You would just have to modify it. It's set up as a action button. I don't I don't know if it does out of the box, Sandy. You can definitely make it do that. Yeah. I don't remember. That's the quick answer. If that type of button can be moved to a list view button, or if you have to set it up differently. And I will be joining Sandy at the Ottawa users group meeting on September 29th. So
Cool.
excited to do that. And we're going to talk more about flow then.
Okay. Next question is from Jeremy. Why do you need a loop in this scenario? Is it just for an example? Could you not just use an update related records option for the opportunities that are open?
Oh my gosh, you're so right. You're right. We could just use an update. Couldn't we, Jen? We're just taking them. We're getting the collection. No, you can't. You can't do that. You have to loop through. You have to say what you want each one to do. There isn't a way with updates to make a change. You have to use an assignment variable. You got me there for a second. But no, there's a reason we're doing this. The update records is not going to, it can't change everything like that. It has to go through a loop. At this point, there might be something coming soon that would be easier, but right now you need to loop through to make changes to a group of records.
Okay, and can you explain again why we need 2 assignments?
Yeah, can I share my screen again?
Sure, hold on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the 2 assignments. Okay, first assignment, let me get my buckets out here. First assignment is we're saying take this opportunity and mark it closed lost. So our first assignment is change the item currently in the loop to equals closed lost. Okay. Our second assignment is to put it in this bucket, add it to this collection. So I did try it once to just do the 2 things in one assignment, and it doesn't work. So you have to use 2 different assignments to get the job done here. I don't know why, but that's the rules. 2 assignments. 1 to say this is what I want to change. 2 to put it in your bucket. And I just want to look at the updates records to go back to the last question. Specify conditions and set fields individually. I don't know. I don't think it's not going to work. You gotta go through a loop. All right.
Okay. Next question from Amara. Should we not store only 2 fields, opportunity ID and status, instead of all fields in a get record?
I don't think so. We could be concerned about storage limits if we're possibly if you're running up against, tons of records. But I like this store all fields option. I haven't had any problems with it. It's really easy. Um, if you're not sure what Amara is talking about, there is an option for you to, instead of saying automatically store all the fields, you can say, just get me the ID, just get me the status. Problem with that is then when you're going to pick your fields, it still gives you the option. It still lists all of the fields there, even if you haven't selected them. So then you can, if you change your mind and say like, oh, I want to use this field also, if you haven't selected it in your very first statement, it's not going to be there. So I would just go ahead and use all of them. And if you run against problems with it, switch and let us know, because I think it's fine.
Okay, cool. All right, next question from C. DeVries. If you're running a screen flow through a set of records from a list view, would it make sense to update the record during each iteration of the loop so that you don't lose progress on failure?
Okay. So you want to set up your flow so that you don't lose progress on failure. Let's see. So you're thinking about if it can't update it, it's going to break the whole thing. That's a good point. If your collection can't be updated, it's going to break the whole thing. So no, it's not a good idea to do your DML statement inside your loop. I would say you'd want to handle your exceptions. You'd want to know or run it, see when it breaks, and then build something into your flow to say, okay, if this is going to happen, you could add in a decision element, like if it's going to break because of this reason, go over here. You can direct the loop to ignore it or not do anything with it. I would say that would be a better process so that you don't hit your DML statements. It really, though, it depends on how many records you have in your list view. If you're just doing this once, it might work, but we're definitely not going to recommend that you do that. We'd recommend you handle the different scenarios that you might run into inside the flow.
All right, let's see. Next question from Barbara. When do you use a filter criteria instead of a decision and vice versa?
Okay, great question. So I think I would use a decision to take two different paths. So I mentioned in one scenario, I might want to delete some of these records. Let's say if they're older than 300 days. So the decision would take the flow in a different direction. So if I want to delete, I want to add those records to a delete collection. If I want to go ahead and update it to closed lost, I'll go in that direction. The filter criteria is going to give me my collection, and then I can divide it. So let's see. Okay, here's an idea. Here's the thing. Using your get records and your criteria, that's a DML statement. So that's touching the data outside of your flow. So when I get the records, making that decision, break them in half, that's not using a DML statement. It's looking at the data you've already brought in. So that would be one thing to make the flow run faster and smoother, is if you can divide it up using a decision, that's not going to be hitting your actual data. If you have to have two collections to get those separate things, that's going to be making DML statements and touching the data outside of the flow.
Great. All right, next question is from Mark. I don't see the quick method you use for updating the elements of the name.
And hi, Mark. How's it going? Okay, so sharing my screen again, Jen.
Great.
Okay, so when I'm in, let's see, my get records. Nope, that doesn't have it. Let's look at, when I go to my manager here, I can look at my different elements or my variables. Um, nope. Where is, maybe it's in an assignment. Okay, I have to go into edit it here. Okay, if I'm going to change this label to 2 and I want to change this, I delete it out, click forth. Delete it, click back and forth, and that'll update the API name for me. Pretty cool, huh?
All right. Let's see. Okay, Sandy again. Can I reference a series of record IDs in a text variable when using a get records element?
Yes, you would need to go through a loop to put them into a text variable. So if you use this account or use this app from the App Exchange, that's going to show you how to make a list using the opportunities in the collection. So we're making a list of the names in that flow, but you could make a list of IDs. So you definitely need to use a loop, and your assignments, in addition to modifying your records or making that draft on your record variable card, you are going to be saying in your assignment, you would say, okay, I want to take the ID from this variable and put it over here in a text variable. And then the next time it goes around, it does that again. It grabs the ID, adds it to that text variable. So if you look at this App Exchange app, it shows you how to do that, how to create a list of opportunity names, or it could be IDs. It could be anything.
Great. All right, next question is from Gabrielle. If I wrongly make a link from one component to another as part of the loop, how can I change what step is done at every iteration and what task is executed at the end?
Okay, sharing my screen again. Okay, so you just have to click on the connector and hit delete on your keyboard. That is the big trick there. And you can then, when you're in freeform, you can move them around. That's a difference of why you wouldn't use auto layouts, because I don't. Oops. Okay, here's, can't open an auto layout, an element's not connected to the start, and there's a step element. So if you're in freeform, or in auto layout, it's not as easy to move them around. So let's see, we lose positions. That's fine. So I am not sure how we take out the connector in auto layout. So that is a good reason to switch over to freeform. So you just click on it and hit delete.
All right, let's go back. Here we are. All right, and the next question from, let's see, Dave Rees. Is it better to have 1 or 2 record triggered flows per object, like one before save record triggered flow and one after save record triggered flow, or many objects with an entry criteria?
Jen, I think you have a show all about that, right? Or at least you had them talk about it.
I know our handle posted the link to the automate this record triggered flow design patterns discussion, where we had people weigh in on one versus the other, and ultimately it's really your choice. We've given you the tools that if you have a relatively small org and you can manage all your flows and you like having them in one consolidated a before save and an after save for an object, you can do that with subflows. If you like having
Hmm.
smaller individual flows because you have multiple business units and you don't want them tripping over one another as they make enhancements, and then you all have to regression test every time a change is made. You can use the trigger order to control the order of execution of those record triggered flows. So the answer, you might not like it. It depends. It depends on your situation, and you choose what makes sense for you. Okay. So the next question is from Gabriel. If I want to send an email from a list of modified opportunities to the corresponding owner, where do I put that step?
Hmm. Great. I would put that inside the loop. I would add an action to email the person then. I don't think there is a, um, wait a minute. Email action. You could go either way. This is a great question. Um, I'm writing this down. I think I've done it inside the loop before, but I think you could also do it outside of the loop and use an email, send email action and email to a collection of emails. So you might be able to do it either way. I don't think I don't think emails are DML statements, but I'm not sure. That's a great question.
All right. Our next question is from Sandy again. Why can't I use is change as an entry criteria when using update only when record update matches the criteria?
Is change? I don't know why they built it that way, but we're saying um,
Yeah, I'm not really sure why you can't use is changed, but when you're doing a record triggered flow on record update, you do have access to the current record and the prior records field. So what I would do is this field doesn't match a prior record field, and then
hmm.
whatever your criteria is. And that's similar to is changed.
So when you're accessing your record variable using your $sign variable, you can also find in there $sign prior value. So that gives you the option to see what was the value of this before the flow fired.
Yeah. Right, and I think this last one, Gabriella, is just a comment. So we'll share this here.
Hmm.
She likes to add fault connectors in the case my flow fails. I know is because of issue within flow. Eventually, create a custom log object, define record values, and call it a log error subflow. All right, so she mentioned the word subflow. For those
Mm-hmm.
of you who don't know what subflows are, Jessie, can you explain that?
Sure. So a subflow is when you have a flow and then it calls another flow. So you can send variables from your first flow into your second flow, and then they can come back to the first flow. So it's a great option if your flow is visually getting it out of control. You can't understand what's going on there at all. Break it down into smaller chunks with a subflow. And you can use a subflow to handle your error handling, like Gabriella mentions here. On App Exchange, I also have an app for flow error handling that gives you a subflow. It's called flow error handling if you look for it on App Exchange. So that gives you a subflow for handling your errors. So you use a fault line to go to the subflow, and it'll handle error messages. I love that Gabriella says create a custom log object. So I don't have a log object in the App Exchange package. That's a cool idea. It's just going to send you an email with information about the error. And you create a fault path in here. That's by once you've already dragged the connector, well, let me share my screen again, please. Okay, cool. So let's say my fault path was going to go over here. I've already, whoops. Okay, let's try it again. Let me clone this one. So if you can't go there from a loop. So from my get records, if I've already connected it to something, if I connect it to something else, that's going to be my fault element. So it's going to go over here when there's a fault. So primary things you want to do there are send yourself an email. Hold on. Or you could go back to an earlier part in the flow. There's a rollback option in screen flows. That's it on that. Thank you. Great comment. Thank you.
All right, so we were having so much fun with questions. I didn't even realize the time.
Oh, yeah.
So let's wrap things up. All right, just a reminder, 3 things to know about loops. So update your records in a loop flow. You're going to use the same 5 elements that Jessie went through when building a flow loop. Just think of it as a stack of papers where you're writing something down as a draft, moving it along, and then at the very end, putting it in permanent pen. And then just imagine flow as an empty space. You kind of have to tell it what to do with data and to move things in and out. All right, so now it's your turn. Engage with others in the Trailblazer community Salesforce automation as you build out your automations and you have questions posted there. There's always so many people willing to jump in and help out. Also visit our automation resource page on admin.salesforce.com for more admin automation resources. And then lastly, get hands-on with a record-triggered flow module. There's so much content out on Trailhead on flows. All right, so thank you again, Jessie, for being a guest on Automate This. Thanks for teaching us hands-on how to, build loops in flow. I know that that's a really complex topic, but you made it easily to understand and digestible with your visual aid. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Great. All right, so I hope you all are enjoying the series. Next month, I have my friend, Automation Hour co-host and Salesforce MVP, Michelle Hansen, back on Automate This to talk about how you can use platform events with a record-triggered flow to work around those nasty mixed DML errors that we sometimes run into. So set the reminder now and be reminded of it later. And if you're going to Dreamforce, you can attend Michelle's session in person. She's going to be presenting on that same topic. All right, so thank you all for joining us on Automate This. Hope you like the engagement, and please tell me what you think. I want to continue to have this open conversation with you all, so complete that quick survey and let me know what you liked and what you want to see more of. And remember, the best way to be notified of live stream is to set the reminder, and you'll get an email reminder on the day of the event. Also, follow us on Twitter at Salesforce Admins, on LinkedIn and the Trailblazer community. We will be posting information on our upcoming sessions as well. And thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.